kick is up, and it's good.
You're listening to The Extra Point, hosted by Phil Ruskin. Welcome.
Yeah, buddy. I like it, man. First time, well, I mean, you and I have seen that multiple times, this video, but first time that we have actually led and opened an Extra Point show with an Extra Point video and some music. So I don't know, man. I like it. I like it. It sounded good. It looked good. So here we go.
I'm kind of in, man. I was
Yeah.
gonna ask you, are you gonna move all your 49ers up like 5 spots in the rankings? Because every time you watch the video, you're gonna get a little hyped about the 49ers.
If Dallas Clark wants to come back and play for a little while. I mean, I know we have George, but I tell you what, man, the Niners. Right now, if football season started today, we don't even have 53 guys on the roster. So we don't have enough guys to actually play football. I'm kind of glad for the Niners' sake that we got a couple more months to go here. But
put me in, coach. Hey, big credit to Classic Mike, though. Obviously, a fan favorite. Put that together. I think it's spicy, man.
Yeah, it was awesome. So we had a guy that we actually hired out to do the music, and he's got licensing rights and all that. So that was great. And then Mike putting together the video. So huge shout out to the team here at Get Right Fantasy Network. But welcome to the Extra Point. I am your host, Phil Ruskin. It has been, I'm not even gonna say a minute, Kendall. It's been multiple minutes at this point. TikTok doc. But yeah, man, summertime, y'all know how it is. So best ball, been grinding the best ball drafts. We will have a best ball show for you all tomorrow night. But tonight we are going to talk a little bit about redraft. Before we do, Kendall, what's up, dude? It's been a minute since I've chatted to you, man.
Dude, I'm just, you know me, we love to go way too deep in our dynasty leagues. We've been living in the dynasty off season, just going crazy, throwing trades around, getting the new leagues organized, which is always a feel out process, meeting the new league mates. The Scott Fish stuff we've been doing has been an absolute blast. But reorienting around the redraft has been interesting. Really having to reset the mind a little bit. And it seems like year after year, after taking a huge plunge, and we're definitely known to be, in terms of strength, definitely on the dynasty end of things in terms of expertise. Not that we're not league winners elsewhere for sure over here, but I've found that the first couple of redraft drafts that I did just for practice, my initial thoughts were, man, being able to draft just production, not having to worry about age and dynasty value. Like, all my teams feel like super teams. It's so cool. Play a little dynasty, then draft, redraft, and you're like, how could I possibly lose? So figuring out those micro adjustments in tiers where is going to be interesting this year. So
that's what we're going to talk about tonight, right? It is Thursday, June 19th. We are two solid full months away from really getting into the heart of redraft season. Middle of August, obviously we know first week of September 7th, opening weekend, September 4th, I think, is Thursday Night Football. It is, you're right, it is a different process. It's a different way of thinking. And I think the other piece is it's I won't say a different strategy, but it is a different way of evaluating what an actual player is worth. Because you're just looking at single game production. You're looking at, is this a player that I might start for a month and then potentially trade him in season, depending on where I'm at? Because obviously, in the redraft world, you're doing stuff every week. Whereas in Dynasty, you might be making a trade, 2 or 3 trades, a season, prepping for next year. Am I really in it? Do I want to make a trade that's going to help me now? Do I want to kind of say, okay, it's probably not me to make the playoffs and start looking for some future picks? But as well as I do, man, when you're in redraft, you're grinding the waiver wire. You're trying to find somebody that, hey, I think this guy could fall off, but someone else thinks he's the new hotness for wide receiver. I'm going to send, like, speaking of 49ers, like Ricky Pearsall. We're not going to talk about him, I don't think, tonight. We might get to him later in the summer. I guess we could talk about him, but like, he's so interesting to me because Brandon Ayuk, I don't care about the camp news. I never care about camp news. Camp news, everything is positive during camp. It's always great during camp. Everyone's the best they've ever been. They're always healthy. They're always good to go, right? Brandon Ayuk's not going to be there in week 1. And if he is, he's not going to be ready to go. I think if Ricky Pearsall has a really hot first 4 weeks of the season, cash in, man. Cash in. So we'll talk about some stuff. But Kendall, because we are such big Dynasty guys, and because we are going to do some best ball stuff tomorrow night, because it's the summertime, if y'all listeners are not doing best ball and grinding the best ball drafts this summer, you're leaving money on the table. People like me and Kendall will come scoop it up. We appreciate you. But I want to know, and this is, I think, a good way to start the show, is what kind of a fantasy football player are you in redraft? Because it is a different way of evaluating the board. It is a different way of looking at your builds, and you're not necessarily, maybe you are worried about stacking, but you're probably not reaching for a stack and redraft the way that you are in a best ball league. So what kind of a redraft drafter are you?
I will answer that just one quick moment because I don't know how long he's going to be there. I think they got some weather in their neck of the woods potentially. I got to look at that. But the Godfather himself, Rasta, glad to have you in the chat, man. For those that I know, Rasta's got a lot going on. For those that don't know, gonna have to check out the pictures once if I can convince him to drop in the Discord. But Rasta's got a motorcycle license, and he looks. I'm gonna throw it out there. Our boy looks sharp up on the bike, man. It's looking good. So
I like the Joker on the chin strap, the ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm into that. So
yeah.
But yeah, I look good. So
that's getting in trouble for going 100 miles an hour. I'm talking to you, should do, or what are you doing, buddy?
Ross is gonna be using that handbrake though, boy. He's gonna be squeezing that handbrake about 55, 60 mile an hour. He's not gonna know what he's doing right now. So.
Oh, baby. But what kind of leather? What kind of fantasy football player am I in redraft? So prototypically, as long as I've been in the hyper competitive side of redraft, generally I want to find value at the onesie positions. So I'm usually find value great at quarterback. I'm not even later great. I'm just late quarterback. And some years, I have pockets of years where I'll be later grade at tight end. I'd say 9 times out of 10, I am looking to just go late and punt the position. And take the old moniker of, look, if I can draft somebody outside of the top 12 that finishes inside of the top 8, I am winning there. And I think I do enough homework that in every single round, there is a running back or a wide receiver I want, round after round after round. And the farther I can push those onesies down, the more just bulletproof. Not only do I feel about my starting lineup, but also like my first 2 bench spots. I love being able to draft elite bench spots before those onesie positions. I think that is a particular microcosm of how you can, over the course of a season, be like, that's actually why I won my title. So I'd say those 2 are perennial for me. I lean hero RB. It took me a little while to get there. I was much more of an elite dual running back. So I wasn't super high T. I'm going to draft a bunch of them, but I was a dual elite, a lot of RB starts. And then I would always I found that in my own process, I was pretty good at evaluating wide receivers, especially wide receiver 2s and upside 3s on their team that would always outproduce their ADP, enough so that I wanted to draft them later. I was hitting on them hard, and it was a little bit tough to replace really, top 5, top 10 running back production. So I'm a hero RB guy, late quarterback, late tight end. I think that's kind of the big archetypes. If I had to pick a draft spot, I'm a middle guy. I want the 6 or 7. I want the falling value. I hate the turn, no matter what's going on. I'd say my position of value is I'm pretty good at undervalued wide receivers if I had to pick something. And because I'm just not as elite as some of the best at quarterback and tight end, I'm just going to punt the position, give me more places to win.
Yeah, I'm not too dissimilar. I'm generally going to take a very late round quarterback rather than reach, in this case, quote unquote, pay up for somebody. And I am almost always going to completely punt the tight end position unless there's just a stupid value, somebody makes a mistake. Now, let's caveat this, as we always do, with your league matters, right? Your league size matters. If you're playing tight end premium, if you're, have special bonuses for certain players, then that can influence a little bit. But I'm also looking, again, this is mostly a dynasty show, but I'm looking for highest touchdown upside that I can get in redraft, because you're not worried about next season. So the Mike Evans of the world that I probably don't want on my dynasty roster, who has incredible touchdown upside, and at this point I fully believe is quarterback proof and is going to hit 1,000 yards every season because he's never not hit it. I would love a Mike Evans on my team in a redraft league for one season, right? It's great touchdown upside. You can grab him, whereas, just have a board up here. He's in the 3rd. That's probably a little too rich for me unless I start a little, depending on what my build's going to look like. But, to me, I'm looking at, I build my redraft teams pretty similar to how I try to ultimately structure my dynasty teams, which is wide receiver heavy. If you're a fan of the show, if you listen to us, that's always my go-to. Similar to you, I do like if I can get the hero RB, but I also find that the value at running back off the waiver wire these last couple of years, because of the amount of injuries, has been why I'm so wide receiver heavy, is because I believe I want to lean on those guys, knowing that if my running back 2 goes down, my running back 3 goes down, sure, that sucks, but can I get to the waiver wire and find 80 to 85% of that production? Because my running back 3, I mean, how much are they really giving me? You know what I mean? Like, are they in my flex spot? Probably not. I want a wide receiver in my flex spot. I always do, especially if it's a PPR league. So I think we'll talk about some of this tonight. But I think you've got some, comments here on the board. Scott Kobe saying, I think it's 9, 10, 11 is a pretty good spot this year. Getting a Puka and Henry would be a great start. It's a great comment. It's very doing all these best ball drafts. Tomorrow night we'll do a best ball show, but doing all these best ball drafts does start to give you a sense of what the board's going to look like in late August, right? Even now in the summer, I found that my best ball drafts that I like, the teams I like the most, to Scott's point, have been when I'm actually drafting towards the back half of the first round, because I know that if I really want to go, it's best ball. I'm shooting for the moon.
And redraft ADP, the best ball markets on Underdog right now, and even some of the other sites, are much more accurate, faster. They have one of the most efficient ADPs really, really quickly because of how early they start. It feels like the redraft streets tend to follow and morph, not fully into, but much more closely into the best ball. So it does give you kind of a where will the markets sort of move. And Scott, I agree. Having done a couple best ball drafts in particular, I think I agree with Phil, where you think you'd like an early pick just to get some positional value, getting a chance at the Chase Jeffersons and whatnot. But I kind of agree the late round 2 with an early pick, I feel like there's some value drop off. Where I agree with you. My first 2 picks at that turn, I think are pretty nice. Yeah. You're spoiled for choice. So there's so many combos that are great.
We'll talk about it tomorrow night. And I've got a bunch of stuff in, obviously in the show sheet for tomorrow night, and even in my head, because I've done so many of these right now. But I think for what we want to talk about for redraft purposes tonight, let's just kind of get in early. It's obviously June, right? We had mini camp, we had rookie camp. Okay, fine. Like I said earlier, everything is good news right now. Everybody's the best they've ever looked. Everyone's fit. Everyone's ready to win the Super Bowl. My question to you here to start is, where's a couple guys that stand out? And let's start at the quarterback position here. Is there somebody that you're thinking of, Kendall, that in a redraft league, let's say for this particular question, it is a 6-point passing, because obviously if it's 4-point passing, we know that's going to elevate the rushing quarterback. So let's neutralize this question a bit to go with 6-point passing. Do you still find some value in late round quarterbacks the way that you like to draft? And if so, who?
Yeah. I really had I had sort of two initial observations without going into like individual player by player takes, just kind of reading initial ADP, not where they'll fall on the board in relation to other positions, but just the board of QBs, right? What that kind of felt like. What I was seeing was there's this bulk of like, a Fantasy Pros ECR, just kind of what I'm using right now, that tier 3 of like 8 through 13 has a lot of these sort of second tier rushing quarterbacks that I look at, 12 team leagues are typically what I'm in. So in most of competitive leagues, most folks are drafting one, only a couple are going to double tap at the end. It's 14, maybe 15 quarterbacks drafted probably in total. I'm seeing that last quarterback I could possibly draft in the league is falling into a range of, I can get an athletic rushing quarterback as the last quarterback in the draft, potentially, or significantly later, even past like the middle tiers. So this range of like Kyler, Nix, Herbert still has legs, Caleb Williams, Justin Fields. You could even throw like a Jordan Love and certainly Drake May in there as well. I know that's a big group. They all are athletic to some extent, some of them more than others, but I like that they're all QB8 or lower. Yep. So I like that I can get that cheat code in fantasy, the floor that it gives you, also some elite production. The game range of outcomes is just, everything helps when you've got that rushing floor, even in a 6-point passing league. The nice thing is I don't hate the offenses for these quarterbacks. They're not, I mentioned Justin Fields. They're not all Justin Fields, right? I don't think Bo Nix is a bad passer. I think Justin Herbert is one of the most underrated passers. He had a couple bad games. Brock Purdy's surprisingly good with his legs. All these guys are decent passers.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them have worse offenses, but for the most part, they're cheaper. I think that range is cheap enough, and there's enough of them. If the range was, let's just say it was like Drake May, Bo Nix, Kyler. Let's just hypothetically pretend that's 3, and a quarterback run can happen pretty quickly when there's 3 quarterbacks in a tier. Someone's going to see one. Now they can't wait to get out of that tier. So you'll kind of see a run. And from a real life drafting perspective, that tells me, hey, I might not get one of them. If I'm kind of targeting that range, I might not get it as a value because that range and that tier is wide enough of if I want an athletic quarterback that's got some upside, there's such a wide range. I can get that at quarterback 15, technically, right? Drake May, I think in ECR is QB 17. Love is 16. The fact that I can literally draft that and it's possibly undrafted, it also tells me it might be a mistake this year. If I can get a quarterback that I think will finish inside the top 12 or 10, and I'm drafting them off the waiver wire, essentially, I think this year that combination of athletic, plus they're just decent quarterbacks. There's a big tier break between like quarterback 15, 16 in the bottom half of the league. I think anyone in that range can have a good week. I think you can draft no quarterbacks and literally you could stream quarterback all year this year and probably finish on average with a top 10 value across all the streaming games. So I'm liking that a little bit.
Yeah, agreed. I think what's interesting is we have this conversation. What I'm about to say is we have this conversation literally every year. And it is always mind-boggling to me, the inverse correlation between first round wide receivers and late round and their associated late round quarterback. And you and I talked about this last year and the year before. Historically, CeeDee Lamb has been drafted inside the top 3 wide receivers. Now he's a little bit further down the board right now because people like Puka, they like some of these other names, and fine. But you know, you've got your clear tier of JJ and Jamar Chase. Joe Burrow, I believe, has the ability to be the overall QB1 this season in redraft because the Bengals defense is going to be, as of today, non-fucking existent, which is exactly what you want because you've got a high-powered offense that can score at will with some players that you can't defend and a defense that's going to give it up pretty much every time they have to go on the field. My point is that Joe Burrow is being drafted in the 3rd, 4th round to go along with Jamar Chase at the overall number 1 pick. Here's my question that I can not answer, and I don't understand. I can answer it, but I'm saying I don't understand why people keep doing this. Why are you telling me that Brian Thomas Jr., that BTJ, is being consistently drafted at the end of the 1st round, maybe at the turn of the 2, but he's being drafted consistently in the first 15 picks, and Trevor Lawrence is being drafted in the 12th round? And that's coming from me, Kendall, who shit on the Jaguars all year last year. Go back
very successfully, by the way. You want to take a little victory lap? If you listen to Phil, you faded Trevor.
The Jaguars. I faded the Jaguars offense and Trevor hard last year. I said, stay away, danger, warning signs, crikey. And it was danger. It was disgusting. You didn't want anything to do with it. I'm not saying go spend your whole fab budget or whatever it is. Like, I'm not saying, move Trevor Lawrence and draft him in the 3rd round, but we're talking about values. If you're telling me that I could get a late round, 10th, 11th, 12th round pick on a Trevor Lawrence, who I believe right now at quarterback 19, easily in Liam Cohen's new offense, with a Travis Hunter, with a Brian Thomas Jr., who right now is the dynasty overall wide receiver 4, 5, 6, depending on your own personal rankings. I've seen him right behind Neighbors
defense
at wide receiver 4.
Bengals.
So what I'm telling you is that you're telling me you have a player that you've already seen do it in year 1. We expect to take a year 2 step. I still don't believe that Travis Hunter is going to be a full-time offensive player. I just don't. I don't think anyone does. But he's still going to be better than anything they've had, even if he is the true wide receiver 2 on that team. You've got
better help to the quarterback in the NFL versus fantasy. It's a much better pro Lawrence take than it is a pro Hunter take, right?
And we talk about this all the time. When you have a high superpower star wide receiver bringing along a quarterback, JJ McCarthy, to me, it's his rookie season. We have no idea if the kid's any good. The same questions we had about him in the draft process, we still have today. But the answer that we believe is that Justin Jefferson is so good that he's going to bring JJ McCarthy along more so than JJ McCarthy has to be good to support Justin Jefferson. I think it's a much closer, you can't see my hands, but I think it's a much closer gap. Whereas Brian Thomas Jr. is phenomenal. He's not Justin Jefferson. So I don't think Brian Thomas Jr. has to be phenomenal to bring Trevor Lawrence along. I think they can do a bit of both. I think Trevor Lawrence can pick up BTJ on the days when BTJ's got double coverage or whatever, it's, you know, raining, whatever the excuse may be. And the inverse is, I think Trevor Lawrence can be a good quarterback. So I'm interested in Trevor Lawrence this season in redraft, if the price is right. I'm interested in CJ Stroud. The Houston Texans rebuilt their offensive line. They brought in 2 wide receivers in Nolan and Higgins. They got rid of Steph Diggs. Tank's out for the year, which means Higgins is starting. So as of right now, the question is he going to be that good? He's being drafted to be that good, especially in Dynasty. He's going in the second round. So I think it's interesting that the entire fantasy community, I'm looking at a board right now where CJ Stroud was drafted at the last pick of the 10th round. This was the QB1 in Dynasty. Sorry, rookie rankings 2 years ago. He was like the overall QB 3 or 4, and now he's being left for dead because he had one bad season. And it's only his second season, so he goes from being offensive rookie of the year to complete trash to people assume he's going to be complete trash again. I mean, they're talking about a 10th round quarterback here. He's being drafted like he doesn't. I don't get it. So those are 2 guys that I'm interested in.
How high do you? I'm curious. How, and I'm going to get to Scott's question here. Putting a little, I think, justifiable heat on that take. Where do you think the ceiling is for those 2 players? Because to preface this, we're not talking about, hey, draft these guys highly. We're saying literally with the potential last pick of your draft or the first player you pick up on waivers, literally undrafted. These are worth worth shots, or this is because this archetype is on the board and is viable for at least a streaming option. Is it devaluing anything else? But what's the ceiling there? Like, let's say you are gonna, if there's a decent range of guys late, they're in there. What's their ceiling compared to some of the other guys in that take? Do you see kind of a high ceiling where I think, like to Scott's point, I think he's talking about there's a floorless situation to maybe a player like Trevor, where we've seen a range of outcomes that's unplayable. Are we playing this not because we think he'll be stable good, but because there's a ceiling outcome that is worth it, and it costs nothing to re-roll into Bryce or somebody else?
I think the ceiling outcome is the same that you're looking for at any onesie position, really at any position, but it becomes more difficult at the wide receiver and running back because there's so many more of them and you're playing so many more of them each week. But at the onesie positions, you are looking for a guy outside the top 12 who is costing you in your draft board basically nothing to go and get him that could finish in the top 12. That's what you're looking for. So can CJ Stroud finish in the top 12 quarterbacks being drafted outside the top 12? Of course he can. We've seen him do it. Let me just pull this because I want to be accurate. Trevor Lawrence has finished as he was the QB 8. His sophomore season was the QB 13. So just outside the top 12 his junior year. And then this last year was atrocious. My point is this, to kind of echo what you just said. If you go and draft Trevor Lawrence or CJ Stroud, because you load up at the wide receiver and running back positions, or you do want to take a flyer on a Brock Bowers early to secure what you believe is an overall, positional advantage, and you punt the quarterback down the road and they suck 2 weeks in, then go drop him and go grab someone off the waiver wire, because there's going to be guys. JJ McCarthy could be sitting on your waiver wire in week 2 because people are terrified of him because they don't know what he's going to look like. Drake May, Dak Prescott. There is a stench around Justin Fields. I am one of the people that is not drafting Justin Fields in redraft until I see it. And as you've heard me say 1,000 times, and I'll say for 1,001st time, I am okay being wrong if Justin Fields sets the world on fire this year and I didn't get a ticket to that show. I'm okay. Because the possibility that Justin Fields is average, I think, is very real possibility. So in best ball, if I've got Garrett Wilson and I want to take I want to take Justin Fields as my QB2 or QB3 in a best ball lineup, like we're going to talk about tomorrow night, fine, no problem. Rushing upside. The week that Josh Allen, who I draft early, in best ball, goes on a bye and I need some points, and that's the week that Fields gets 3 1-yard rushing touchdowns. Awesome, right? So to me, it's like, can you find guys that can outperform their ADP? And then the caveat is, can you find guys that can realistically finish inside the top 12 at the onesie positions? That's that's my definition of a value.
Yeah, and like just to kind of cap this a little bit, because Scott mentions a guy that we're historically always high on year after year, kind of in all formats, to be honest, because he's perennially seemingly undervalued, Matt Stafford. I think there's an interesting take that, like, hey, if we really like Matt Stafford, I think he is somebody I would throw into the similar crowd, not 100% similar, because I will say there is a difference between CJ Stroud, Matt Stafford, and Trevor Lawrence in that two of the three are athletic and can rush in a couple of touchdowns and can build in Purdy secretly had this crazy floor because he actually rushed in a couple touchdowns and just had just enough. Jordan Love does just enough to give himself, like, how does he just keep finishing at these decent fantasy outcomes at the end of year? And it's rushing floors just help.
Yeah.
Where like Stafford just doesn't have a floor, I think that can happen. Not in this year with this offense, in my opinion. But I think what I was going to kind of finish with there is there's a range in redraft right now where let's say literally some people start grabbing a QB2 because maybe it's 6 bench. Like, I think the difference between 5 bench and 7 bench in redraft is miles. Like, I think it actually changes the draft strategy by leaps and bounds, not by tiny little bits. In those deeper bench quarterbacks, or slightly deeper bench, I can just keep drafting good players even when, let's say, we're at 16 quarterbacks have been drafted because people can afford to put them on. I still don't feel the pressure to need to take one.
Agreed.
And, if Lawrence is gone. Okay, someone took the upside on somebody else. If I'm just left with Stafford, or McCarthy, there's enough guys in the top 16 to 18 that I have enough targets. I'm going to find one. I'm going to find one that I like. There's too many to name.
Matt Stafford is and should be every single person's security blanket, night light in your bedroom. We got young kids, so the stuffy that you sleep with to feel comfortable. Because the truth is nobody wants him. No one's going to take him, and he could be great. And again, you're drafting Puka in the first round. You're drafting Devontae Adams in the 6th.
I would take him as early
8th.
as round. I would take Devontae Adams in round 3. I'm stupid.
I'm not that high on him. I mean, I've seen him go in 4. I'm looking at a draft board right now where he went in the middle of the 4th, which I think is fair. But again, if you're telling me that these receivers are being drafted that high, look at the Browns. Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver 1, 7th round. Because nobody thinks that there's a quarterback in Cleveland, and they're probably right. So then the decrease in value, right? Nope. I'm going to ask this, and this is a good shift for us to move into the wide receiver position. Do you want DK Metcalf at the wide receiver position on your roster in redraft this season? Yes or no?
I'm not super good on where his price is, actually. Where's he going? Where's he going right now? Give me the guys above and below him. Let's look at him in ECR.
Here's the guys around him.
Yeah, just position.
At the 4-5 turn, I'll give you 6 names around him. Kamara, Kittle, Smith, Devonta Smith, Flowers, Metcalf, Laporta. You're on the clock at the 4-5 turn, meaning you're drafting probably at the 101 to 104. Are you taking Metcalf over those names? Don't worry about positional build or TEP. Let's just straight up vacuum this.
Sounds like it's starting to hit a range of, with the running backs, I'm at a point where there's a lot in different ranges I like, and that's going to be tricky. Kamara versus DK, I kind of like Kamara a lot this year.
100%.
Now, I will say, comparing him to like Flowers, there's a chance that right after DK, I think the wide receiver position may dry up a little bit. The Flowers, Addison kind of range, I just don't think there's enough ceiling there. So I will say there's enough spots where I'm interested in DK because I want an alpha ceiling outcome as opposed to drafting like a Devonta Smith or whatever, depending on where he goes. I'm not going to overdraft DK, though. I will promise I'll probably find another player I like in that range, probably at running back. I don't think I'm going to own a lot of DK Metcalf, but I just want to go on record saying he's a player I am slightly scared about fading because he's an athletic freak. And I feel like with the right coaching and play calling, he's just he's a physical specimen that's not bad enough at football that something could happen. If he had a crazy season, there's not a person that I think could say, how did that happen? Like, I think all of us would be like,
what's a crazy season? for DK?
15 touchdowns.
15 touchdowns, 1,200 yards?
Don't even give him 1,200. Give him 1,000 yards, but 15 touchdowns. Give him 16 touchdowns. Give me 1,016.
I don't know if the Steelers are going to score. No, I'm just kidding. They're going to score more than 15 touchdowns this season. But I am terrified of Aaron Rodgers. I'm terrified of Aaron Rodgers because he hasn't been good since he's left Green Bay. And he hasn't been in Green Bay in what, 4 or 5 years now? And even his last season in Green Bay was bad. So I don't want DK unless it's a screaming value. I agree with you. Athletic freak, touchdown upside, alpha, Pat Freiermuth. We just talked about it backstage pre-show. We want Pat Freiermuth at a great value because he's probably the second pass catcher. Yeah, Jalen Warren, right? But like, we don't know what Caleb Johnson is yet. We project Caleb Johnson is going to be good. We project in an Arthur Smith offense that Caleb Johnson is the 1B with the potential to become the 1A, depending on how it goes. But I just said the 2 words that nobody wants to hear, Arthur Smith. Like,
yeah, I was going to say the challenge with
chucking it to DK every single play.
DK's a best ball guy for me. If I had to pick a format,
100%.
like I'm going to mix my exposures between the tournament style where I'm relying less on my ability to just nail it. And I'm looking for, can I see the range of outcomes, I think, in a realistic way where I'm just leaning. I'm in best ball. One of my premises, I think a lot of us are closer to 50, 55, 60% correct versus the 90% that we all think we are. Mm-hmm. And with that, I want to take some weird contrarian shots in best ball, just because I think we're wrong enough that if I go contrarian, you have the chance to win a tournament. We're in a league. I know I'm going to have enough edge in a lot of spots. I'm going to look for ceiling spots in some cases, probably not in the middle rounds as much with a guy like DK, because if the offense is just capped, all of a sudden DK becomes this like frustrating flex play that I know I can do better with in those rounds, at least in the redraft setting in particular. I think it's the best way I can go about it.
I know what I'm about to say. I'm going to phrase this in a way that doesn't make me sound like I'm comparing DK Metcalf to Gabe Davis, because I am not. But the reasons why we said for years Gabe Davis was the perfect best ball player is because you never had to worry about starting him in your managed redraft leagues, because you didn't want to, because the week you start him, he gets you 2 points. The week you don't start him, he gets you 37 points. You know what I mean? He has one of those crazy weeks. DK is much more consistent than that. But DK Metcalf's going to have some 3-point weeks. It's going to piss you off. And any player can bust on any single week. I think there was a week last year, if my memory is right, I think it was T. Higgins when he was healthy. I think he got a 0. Like straight up, was on the field, ran 90% of the routes, got 0 points on that week, if my memory is right. It may have been someone else, but I'm pretty sure that's who it was. Here's my point. The 6 guys that I gave you, Kamara, Kittle, Devonta Smith, Zay Flowers, DK, Sam Laporta, I would take all of those over DK.
Yeah.
I would take all those guys over DK, including Devonta Smith, who's not even the 1A in his offense, because the quarterback play is so much better. And we know any player can get hurt on any play. But if A.J. Brown misses time, you have a bona fide wide receiver 1 with a bona fide QB 1. Zay Flowers, sure, the ceiling is lower. Derrick Henry is the touchdown guy. Lamar's legs are what's going to carry them. But the quarterback play is so much better than what you're going to get with Aaron Rodgers, even though DK Metcalf is clearly the guy. So that's why I would take a Zay Flowers over Metcalf, is because I don't think at the end of the year, on a points per game basis, it may be different, but on the end of the year, median outcome, I don't think they're going to be that far off from each other.
Or we know one of the better tiebreakers year after year. You can look at all the stats in the world, but a great tiebreaker is just look at the wide receiver position. What offense is just going to have a better offensive ecosystem?
And that's it.
I mean, sure, there's always outliers across everything, but in between all the outliers with the regular seasons, the better offense just carries you in a pretty big way and gives you better chances at crazy high-end outlier stuff. Like when the Lions all of a sudden became the best offense in the NFL, like they needed it for all of them to be relevant. They really did.
Well, yeah, when you're scoring 54 points a game, you can have 3 viable fantasy assets on a weekly basis. You know what I mean? But that aren't named Goff. You can have an Amon-Ra and a Gibbs and a JMO. You know, all 3 can go off on the same week.
Yeah, like Laporta is a outside the top 8, 9, 10 tight ends if that offense is mediocre. It's just not there. So I'm leery of offenses like Pittsburgh for that reason.
Yeah, I am as well.
Should we
I don't want to spend this much time on DK, but it's a good exercise, right? I see Scott's comment. I don't remember where he put it in here. Oh, for everyone, here it is. Scott Kobe, and I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. I assume that I am. But for everyone in these drafts in June, try out some stuff and see what you like in redraft, then sculpt what you want to do in late August. This is literally the whole point of tonight's show. Figure out what the board looks like now. We know that the Josh Allens and the Lamar Jacksons of the world are going to go early. Somebody in your league is going to take that early, quarterback, and that's fine. We know the Trey McBrides and the Brock Bowers are going to go early. But that means that somebody, especially if you're picking close to where that player was selected, someone's dropping. And that could be an incredible value to you, even if you lose on that position. So at the wide receiver spot, give me 2 minutes, maybe 1 minute. One name that just stands out to you right now of a guy that the market is undervaluing, and we expect him to maybe be an ADP riser as we get closer, or hopefully his position holds and it's a screaming value to you.
Okay, yeah, I can give you. I'll give you one up, one down. How about that?
Okay.
Because you're gonna hear it a lot this off season until you're sick of it. My one up. This is Garrett Wilson. It's the biggest Garrett Wilson take. I just see him as an elite level target earner. He's always at least NFL open. There's a difference between NFL open and college open. Like, I'm not saying he's the greatest separator in the world, but I think with competent quarterback play, he is always open enough to catch the ball. Like, he's got enough Malik Neighbors to where he's not a pure physical freak, but he's a freak enough that he can do anything, and he just needs the targets, and he demands them. I generally want to draft guys that I can project him at 11 plus targets a game. I mean, it's possible to do that week in and week out. What's his like DraftKings line gonna be in targets every individual game? When that's 10.5 minimum, and he's going as late as he is, beneath guys that need to score 10 touchdowns to finish in the top 10, I just think he's a situation where I don't think anyone's down on Garrett Wilson. Let me be honest. I think all the Garrett Wilson haters are really Aaron Rodgers and Jets haters, and they're the guys that stopped drafting Kelsey and Mahomes, and we're probably right about it. They're just saying, hey, the offense ain't there. Or the people that are just saying, hey, it's a mess, I'm not going to touch it. The fact is, you still would have been wrong for the most part. Like, yeah, the offense was terrible. I have never seen a guy finish that high in fantasy with that awful of what looked like a quarterback play in the field. I think Garrett Wilson's being drafted at his floor. He's right now wide receiver 13 in ECR. He finished last year, depending on the format, is like wide receiver 10 to 13. He's getting a quarterback that, in my opinion, is much more of a first read. He'll force it to Garrett Wilson, which sometimes isn't good for the team, but it's definitely good for Garrett Wilson for sure.
Agreed.
And I don't think the quarterback play gets bad. Like, if it gets inaccurate, whatever. I don't really care that much about that. I just want him to force feed his number one target, and I think Fields will do that. He's already got some loyalty. I think you're drafting him as floor, and I think his legitimate range of outcomes is a top 5 wide receiver. Amon-Ra this past season lost a little bit of volume, just overall volume. The passes came down a little bit. JMO took a little bit more of the target share. I can easily see Garrett Wilson having the same positive regression that Amon-Ra had negative regression.
Agreed.
So Garrett Wilson is a guy I'm going in on, and just for a shorter take, a guy that's being, I think, a little overdrafted in my opinion. Unfortunately, I have to say that it's probably between AJ Brown and Ladd McConkey. I think everyone's a little bit down on AJ Brown in general. They've heard those takes. I'll just come out and say I love Ladd McConkey. I think the team on a good day has a great defense, utilizes its proper X wide receiver, spreads the ball around just enough that Ladd is very valuable.
Yeah.
But he has some negative regression in how much of a dominator rank, his usage percentage. And I don't think he's going to be that natural of a red zone threat. His yak was crazy last year. I see him as good, but I think he's being overvalued in drafts because he's just fun. Fun players always go just a little bit too high over unfun players. I want to flip their rankings. Ladd and ECR is 11. Garrett Wilson's at 13. I don't think I'm going to hurt too many feelings. Can we at least flip-flop them? There's no way I'm drafting Ladd McConkey over a Garrett Wilson. Talent-wise, Garrett Wilson will always be the better wide receiver. Ask them both in a room, and they'll both agree.
Yeah. I don't think that's Yeah, I like it. I think the other thing you have to consider, and I think this is at least something you and I have considered because we do this all the time. Chargers got their running back. They didn't have that last year, and the whole thing about Justin Herbert and this is it wasn't a running offense last year because we said it. We said, if you're going to be a running offense, you have to have the ability to run the ball. And they didn't. We said they were a year to 2 years away.
Dobbins was sub 4 yards a carry. I think after week 4, it was below league average, below 4 yards a carry. His explosiveness hid the fact that he was hyper inefficient as a running game as in total. Yep. And Herbert had to pick up the first time with his own legs half the time in the second half of the season.
And half the offensive line was hurt, and then Herbert was in and out of the. I mean, so it's like, if you can get this line correct and put Amari and Hampton back there, that's Jim Harbaugh football. So I'll give you my player that I think is a value, and one name that I really, really think you all need to be considering your lineup builds with this second name. It's Jalen Waddle. In the 6th round, give me Jalen Waddle all day. Here's a player that we have seen be supported by Tua with Tyreek to finish as a wide receiver 1. Tyreek is, I don't know what he's doing. You know, he's got this wrist surgery, and now he says he's fine. He's catching passes, and then he's not. He's got his off-field issues. Does he really want to be in Miami? Does he not? I don't think they're going to trade
him. Great podcast. Get him on the show.
Yeah. I mean, so my point is that even if it's still the same offense that we've seen, I think Tyreek has starting to hit that age cliff and has regressed a little bit. Waddle needs to step up and truly be the future, and I think he knows that, and I think McDaniel knows that, because I got news for you. Mike McDaniel might be on the hot seat here pretty quick. They've underachieved. They haven't. The playoff game, they made the playoffs. They went to Kansas City in negative 20-degree weather, and I know Kansas City had to play in the same damn weather, so I don't want to hear that the Dolphins can't play in this weather and the curse and all this crap. Guys, it's a 60-minute football game. You got to play the game. You know what I mean? Like, get on with it. The Dolphins looked bad. Chiefs beat them. They haven't made the playoffs since. So I don't know that McDaniel is secure. I think he probably makes it through this season because I think the division is poor. The Patriots aren't going to be very good. I don't think the Jets are going to be very good. So I think the Dolphins should finish second in the division, which probably buys him another year. But you've got, 2 young running backs in Achane and I believe Jalen Wright, who's the second running back on this team now with Mostert in Las Vegas, right? So that changes the dynamic a little bit because Achane's not a 3-down back, which means it should open up. Jonnu, as of today, is there, but does he want to go? Are they going to pay him? Are they not going to pay him? Is he going to get traded? If he goes, my point is this. Waddle, I know he's had his injury history, and we talk about this all the time. Is he injury prone, or can anyone get hurt on any play? I don't know. Anybody can get hurt on any play. I don't think he's injury prone.
And in a lost season, it's so much easier to just be a little more injured for another week.
It's a scapegoat, right? Exactly. Like, we're not making the playoffs. Well, what's the point of, I got to get a contract. I got a family to feed. I just think Jalen Waddle, here's the names he's going around. Jordan Addison, who might get suspended. His trial date when the DUI was just set for July. Chris Godwin. I'd rather have Waddle over Godwin, personally. That's what I would do. Doesn't mean you have to agree with that. It's just what I would do. Tet McMillan, we've never seen him play. Travis Hunter, never seen him play. And here's the real drop-off. Jerry Jeudy, Calvin Ridley, Khalil Shakir, Jacoby Myers. That's the group that Jalen Waddle is being drafted around right now.
Sounds like you can make a case for, like, you can make an upside or a safe case for all of them, but the combination of, do you really have like an elite ceiling with it? I'm
only player of those names. The only players that I just named in that specific group, and those were just the receivers. That doesn't include them. We're in the dead zone running backs at this point. The 6th, 7th round is always where the dead zone running backs are, unless you can find someone that just slips ridiculous, slip and fall sort of situation. But are you telling me that other than Chris Godwin,
that's
are you really telling me that Calvin Ridley with a rookie quarterback and in a rebuilding Tennessee team has a ceiling that Jalen Waddle has? That Khalil Shakir in an offense that spreads the ball around because they don't have an alpha pass catcher and their best running back is their quarterback and their best running back is actually a better pass catcher than he is a running back, who also just showed up to training camp because he wasn't getting paid? Jacoby Myers with, who the fuck's the quarterback in Las Vegas?
I got Gino over there now.
Gino, sorry. Okay, Gino, sorry. Okay, so that's my point. You don't have the ceiling that Waddle has, and the middle of the 6th round. That, to me, again, we had talked about earlier. That's value. So here's the other player that I think you need to keep an eye on. If you are like me and you do not want to draft JSN in the 3rd round, and I don't, there are better players that I want in the 3rd round than JSN. Give me Cooper Kupp as a discount JSN, because I do believe wholeheartedly that Cooper Kupp could be the alpha wide receiver 1 in that offense this season. Give me JSN in Dynasty all day. All day. But for one season in redraft, with a new quarterback and a new, second-year head coach, it is very possible that Cooper Kupp finishes pretty darn close, if not outproduces, assuming everything presumes health, outproduces JSN, because JSN is being drafted right now as the wide receiver 9, 10. And he had a great season last year. I'm not taking anything away from him. I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm saying if you would like to go with a different kind of build, we talk about it all the time. We talked about it with the Rams last year specifically. We talked about Cooper Kupp. If you miss out on Puka, or you don't want to spend that first round pick on Puka, go take Cooper Kupp as your discount Rams wide receiver late on. He knows the division. He didn't leave the division. He knows the offenses. He knows the defensive backs. He knows all of the things that you would expect a receiver. He doesn't know the Seattle offense. He'll get up to speed on that, but he knows the matchups. He knows the guys. He studied this film his entire career. He's been in this division. I like Cooper Kupp as a value in the 8th round as a great flex wide receiver 3/flex play.
You think he could be your what brings to mind right away for me is, and it was a player I was in on for that year too, was when Thielen came over to the Panthers to kind of be what I think Cooper Kupp needs to be for their situation over in Seattle right now. And I think a lot of folks were ready to throw in the towel on Thielen to some extent, and then he just ends up being the godfather adult in the room that even at 30 plus is just still always open, is a good NFL player, savvy with age. And Thielen was a league winner for the first 12 to 14 games. I know it tailed off dramatically, but I do see him doing a similar, like, hey, we didn't like the Panthers, we'll see what happens. But Thielen was a league winner. Do you think Cooper Kupp can have kind of a similar?
I think Cooper Kupp's a better player than Thielen is on a better offense. So yeah, I mean, I think I would say it's more like,
in terms of PPG, I mean, like Thielen was doing like 18 points per game during that stretch. I mean, he was a top 5 wide receiver during that stretch, and you kind of see Kupp similarly as the top 5.
I think it's what you wanted Chris Godwin. I think it's what people have always wanted Chris Godwin to be. If I miss out on Mike Evans, Chris Godwin should give me that really safe floor with a super high ceiling in case of injury or something. And it just hasn't. He's had 1 or 2 good seasons, but it hasn't really panned out that way. But I look at, again, these same names in the same region: Deebo Samuel, Stephon Diggs, Jerry Jeudy, Calvin Ridley, Ricky Pearsall, Jaden Reed, Cooper Kupp. I would take Cooper Kupp over all of those players Stephon Diggs? Come on. Jaden Reed in that offense? Like, it's spike weeks. Give me Jaden Reed in best ball. And I don't even really want him in best ball, to be honest, because I don't think there's enough volume there. But that's my point. Is like, even if I don't want him in a league where I don't have to start him, I damn sure don't want him in a league where I've got to make a decision on him every week.
Yeah. So, are you okay being wrong? Is this like, I think me and you, I know me especially, I'm a range of outcomes guy. I will always say I am some percentage scared and I'm some percentage excited. And that's just always the truth. I want to be nuanced and in the middle on things. With Cooper Kupp, at least the way I see it is, yes, is there a chance that he is just kind of some percentage washed? Sure. Do I think some percentage washed plus injury prone-ish? And what I mean by that is not injury prone. I think the NFL is injury prone. I mean more like if you're still only 90-95% recovered, as a former athlete yourself, that spikes your chances of re-injury. Let's say both those are true. I still think I'm ready to be wrong. Like we were in on CMC and Derrick Henry as older, get injured, kind of came off of something. I think we were always ready to be wrong on those type of guys. Is Cooper Kupp one of those? Or Tyreek, people got out on Tyreek for a little while, and then he was all of a sudden a crazy good value, right? Because he just did his thing.
I think you said something earlier that was really interesting. You talking about Garrett Wilson being the wide receiver 13 and Ladd McConkey being the wide receiver 11. I'm not okay drafting Ladd McConkey at the 2-3 turn and being wrong, because you can't afford to be wrong at the 2-3 turn. It's too high value of a pick. You're giving up. I don't have a percentage on this. I don't even know how you would calculate this, but you are giving up almost an entirely guaranteed certainty that players around the player that you miss on are going to outperform that player, because the skill level and the value that they are to their real NFL teams is just too great. Right? Josh Jacobs. if you miss on Ladd McConkey and you don't ever, you start receiver, and you miss out on Josh Jacobs, let's say that was your decision point. All right, would I want to start with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Josh Jacobs, or do I want to start with Amon-Ra and Ladd McConkey? And you decide to go with McConkey, and he, not injury, he busts because Trey Harris becomes something we didn't expect him to be, because Omarion Hampton is just, you can't stop him in the red zone, and they're just pounding the rock into the running plays every single time. And all of a sudden, the value there for McConkey goes down, and Jacobs has anywhere similar to the kind of season that he had last year, your season's not sunk, but you're in trouble. In the eighth round with Cooper Kupp, what am I asking him to be? I'm asking him to be 10 points a game in a flex spot, where if I'm wrong after the first, it's redraft, where if I'm wrong after the first 2-3 weeks, I'll drop him and I'll go pick up Luther Burden, or, you know what I mean? Somebody that doesn't get, I mean, Luther Burden will probably get drafted, but my point is like, you'll grab one of those hot rookies, Jalen Noel, that's the name. You'll go draft Jalen Noel, who no one is going to draft because they're all going to draft Nico and they're going to draft Higgins, right? And then they're probably going to say, I think that's it in redraft because it's in the Dynasty League. And Jalen Noel all of a sudden goes and scores 3 touchdowns in the first 6 weeks, and Nico, misses time. Then goodbye Cooper Kupp and hello Jalen Noel. You know what I mean? Like that's the safety valve for the waiver wire gives you, that you don't get in best ball and that you don't get in Dynasty.
Yeah. Let me phrase that a different way. I couldn't agree more. With specifically 0 RB and hero RB builds, one of the founding premises, and this really comes from the redraft streets before best ball was even as popular as a format. The general premise is, as we start getting efficient and better at calling certain positions, we're getting pretty scary accurate at not where they finish 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but like the range of top 12 wide receivers is fairly predictable. Now with rookies, they can spike up and down and it can be a little bit volatile, but we're pretty good year after year, and that being really, really solid, much more so than running backs to some extent outside of the hyper tier 1, right? So, but part of that strategy is, hey, I'm going to lock in wide receiver picks early that I know are uber, not safe and like I'm not going to get value. I mean, they're safe and have upside. It's that ultra combination. But the point is, it's very little downside outside of injury. Their role is just locked in a million different reasons. If you introduce risk into that portfolio, that role on your team, your whole premise was wide receiver heavy because I'm nailed there, and then I can introduce a little bit of risk later on. It's enough that if I hit, it's just too much to overcome. I think you're introducing too much risk early on as well as later. You're giving yourself, I think, too many chances for the strategy to kind of fall apart in too many places. And I think it's too early to start ruining your draft and introducing that much risk outside of the best ball streets, right? So I think if you can start a little more stable, you can take some bigger value swings later on. And I think to your point, at wide receiver, where some of those guys are going, it's just a little bit too risky. And there's better names, like you're mentioning, that if you can't draft Cooper Kupp in the 6th round and a running back. You can't do it.
No,
right?
And I wouldn't take Cooper Kupp in the 6th round. That's my point.
Or so wherever he was going, a 6th round felt rich. But the idea is, if you're going to take Kupp, if it's like a this or that, would I rather have a running back that I love, right, and go hero RB and have the ability, because this is how I drafted, to take the Cooper Kupps later that I kind of like this year, or do I take a JSN early and kind of hope and cross my fingers a little bit later on, past a range I'm comfortable with? I'd rather have a more comfortable wide receiver for sure. That way I just don't have to introduce the risk, and I think that player does that.
This will wrap this as we move to running back here. Najee Harris, Caleb Johnson, Jalen Warren, Bijan. I saw B. Robinson in my brain. Wait a minute, Bijan's not available. Brian Robinson Jr. Sorry, Bijan. Didn't mean to offend Bijan there. Or Cooper Kupp. And that's my problem, is all of those names that I just named are going right now ahead of Cooper Kupp. And those guys that I just named, except for with the exception of Brian Robinson Jr., aren't even the RB1 on their own team. Because right now we don't know who the RB1 is in Pittsburgh. As of today on the depth chart is Jalen Warren. But Caleb Johnson in best ball is being drafted well ahead of Jalen Warren. And he's being drafted in this redraft mock that I just did 2 picks apart. Because the answer to the question of who's a starting running back in Pittsburgh is hot hand. So I
do
can't.
like that backfield a lot. We're going to have to talk about that in a minute.
We
here.
will,
That's
and we
part
will.
of that team I'm getting excited for.
100%. But my point is that if I don't know who the starter is and I'm chasing volume, give me Cooper Kupp. I don't want Najee Harris on my team. I don't even think Najee's going to make. We've had this conversation privately in our group chat. I think if Najee doesn't have a decent season this year, I think this is it. I don't think he'll be in the league, but I don't think you see Najee become a starter on a team again. I think he will be a backup / complimentary committee back going forward. I think this is Najee's year to prove to a different team than the Chargers, because they clearly just spent a very high valued capital on a running back that they love. I don't see Najee being a starter for a different NFL franchise. I'm shocked he's on the Chargers and not on the Cowboys. Shocked. But then again, it's the Cowboys. So there you go. All right, let's talk about running back, because we are also getting towards the end of the show here. And sorry for the listeners if you were hoping to hear us talk about tight end. It ain't going to happen, because the tight end value is about 3 guys at the top and then fill in the blank below that. So,
yeah, we can do a lightning round on tight end. We're not doing a full episode on it. We can do a drunk episode, like a drunk thoughts episode on tight end, where it's just puns and memes. We'll have some fun.
Pat Freiermuth in the 12th round, because he's the wide receiver 2 in Pittsburgh. There's my tight end take. All right. Give me a running back. Give me one running back that you believe is either undervalued or is going to drastically, well, not drastically, but is going to be one of those ADP risers in August, early September that we see every single year.
Okay. I'll keep it to the top range of guys, because there's me and you love talking about the middle and later ranges, and we're going to do several shows on them. So just keeping my purview a little bit narrow to just kind of the top 16, and really inside of that, I'm looking at the top 12, top 2, round 1 and 2 defining players, where if I'm in on them, if I'm going to reach for them, I'm going to have them in a really high percentage of leagues. And so this is kind of the story of my redraft season. In many cases, I could be writing the first chapter of. I should go get the jersey from the room, but I cannot quit you, Dr. Christian McCaffrey. I can't do it. I'm looking at the Scott Fishbowl stuff that we've been doing. He's typically been going early in round 2. I have been facing down I'm drafting number 6 in Scott Fishbowl. And just a little bit of an aside here, but the whole premise is everyone says Brock Bowers at 6. I still keep saying CMC probably shouldn't still be here. And with where he's going, he's currently on Fantasy Pros ECR RB6. For me, he's clear. I think he's right there with a Saquon at 3. Like, I like Bijan and Gibbs a little bit more, but I think he's in the same tier, to be honest. Yeah. I think he's the bottom of tier 1, not the start of tier 2. If McCaffrey goes outside of pick like 8, he'll be on 100% of my teams, probably. I mean, pretty close to it. Like, I'm not going to take him over Jamar Chase.
Sure.
I'll be honest though, him and Justin Jefferson, I mean, that's really how close it is for me.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really there. I firmly believe
I could have. I can't get on board with that. If you had told me at the 103 you're considering McCaffrey or like another wide receiver, okay. JJ
is heavily quarterback dependent on an offense that I am projecting is going to run the ball more, and that Mason is going to be really good as a 1B that becomes the 1A on that team. And I think the quarterback's actually kind of rushing too. I think it's going to be more.
You think Justin Jefferson's quarterback dependent?
No, I think Justin Jefferson's going to be very good, but not elite great. I just don't think there's enough to go around. JJ McCarthy is not going to throw enough passes in the NFL. He's just not a high volume passer.
No, it's a Kevin McConnell offense. I don't think we're talking. All right, we're going to have this conversation later, because we got to talk about running backs. We're going to go down a rabbit hole.
We should do this. Will be an opening segment where we do rankings debates. We're going to.
Oh yeah, we do, because I am. We are going to. We're going to be on opposite sides of the fence on this one.
And I won't even go into the versus take too much, but let's just insert your hyper valuable wide receiver, and why is CMC like right there for me in a place where I might mix him in. I talked about it. You just talked about the Cooper Kupp take. I have my own Cooper Kupps on the board. If I'm chasing a hero RB strategy, I can't load up forever on wide receiver, because then when Cooper Kupp is up, I will have no running backs, and I will have to take
agreed.
one. I'm going to be forced to. What's the point of having a bunch of mid-round wide receiver values? It's typically what I'm good at projecting and predicting year after year. I'm wasting that ability if I don't grab enough league-winning RB potential early on. And I want to build my teams more that way. And I think the percentage chance that CMC is a league winner versus Justin Jefferson being a league winner, I think the chances that one of those guys finishes is the overall fantasy wide
Position.
over the other. I think CMC has a higher chance to finish above JJ. I think JJ has a higher chance to finish just generally above a range of players. But CMC, when he's on and healthy, is that offense. He's 10 targets plus 20 carries. Agreed. I mean, he breaks the game wide open. I mean, he breaks it so hard, and it's a team that lost weapons. They got more condensed, right? Like, I think Christian McCaffrey is going to be like the efficiency of Achane whenever he wants to, plus more catches than Achane had last year. Just the best Bijan Robinson you've ever seen. He'll come back. I really do see that for him with less targets. Like, how does CMC not get 10 to 12 targets a game?
Debo's gone. Ayuk's not fully healthy. Pearsall has this hamstring.
Is nursing a hamstring injury. Literally,
has got a hamstring thing.
It could be Juwan Jennings and Christian McCaffrey. I'm not kidding. Christian McCaffrey could be second on the team in targets.
I mean, here's the reality. You know this because we've been doing this for years with the Niners. Even if everybody's fucking healthy, it's still Christian McCaffrey is the focal point of that offense. He's a running back and a wide receiver, and that's why you draft him. I would have put it this way. In a PPR league, I would have Christian McCaffrey as my RB4 in PPR. I'm still taking Bijan, Gibbs, and Barkley over him. And then I would be comfortable with him at 4. If it's not a PPR league, I probably put Derrick Henry above him because the touchdown upside is just too great.
Yeah, that's
touchdown
fair.
upside is just too high for me at that. If I'm at this leads into my quick take here. If I'm at the 1-2 turn and Derrick Henry is there, it is an auto pick for me. It has been an auto pick for me all summer in best ball because that's how I like to build. Give me the touchdown upside and load up those wide receivers. But it is right now. I don't understand how Derrick Henry with that floor is being drafted outside of the first round. It's a shocker to me, actually. What I will say is, perfect. You got it. You nailed it. I was going to bring that comment up. Is Rafi's comment, right? Chasing the year's previous number 1 RB most often leads to disappointment. Look, it's not a carbon copy. If it was, then the same players would be drafted year over year over year. And this is aside from injury. There's just regression. There's regression. It's natural. It happens with real NFL teams. Right, the curse of losing the Super Bowl, right? Then oftentimes you don't make the playoffs the next year. I don't know if it's a curse or not, but like there's regression in teams, there's regression in players. So
it's also just a math thing. If you're drafting a player who's getting I just finished as the 1 bump, it's not the stock market. Stocks, you can buy a stock at an all-time high, and then it can just keep going higher. That doesn't work that way in fantasy. There is no higher than number 1.
Correct.
So you're lacking any potential to draft value for the same reasons that me and Phil like. Even though we love McBride and Bowers, we could like them to outperform their ADP even early. You're still ruining the chance to gain some value anywhere else. So for that, Rafi, I think the idea is you'll probably find me and Phil outside of players like literally Jamar Chase and maybe a couple others. I think usually we're always looking to gain value because it's the way to win. And we have to fade the super, super hot, spicy, chalky top 3s because it's just hard to win when you're too chalk. Like that's DFS 101. It's impossible to win a big field tournament if you're going to play chalky. And
so here's my player. And I will give you a really quick breakdown of this. Do you remember, Kendall? You know, I love my games.
I do.
Do you remember after first 2 weeks of last year's season, who the RB1 was?
After the first 2 weeks of last season.
In PPR. Who was the RB1?
Derrick Henry.
Incorrect. PPR.
Oh, PPR. I thought you were going on a non-PPR take. That is going to be
first 2 weeks only.
I'm also doing I'm playing the game already of like, ooh, look at the board. Who's he talking about? My head goes to Saquon.
Alvin Kamara. After the first 2 weeks, he had 22 PPR points. Then he had 44 points in week 2 off of 3 touchdowns on the ground, plus a receiving touchdown and 180 all-purpose yards.
He still outperformed his expected fantasy points too. So you can't say
here was his entire season in PPR.
Wow.
He had one game under double-digit points. One. He finished last year as the RB 14. Excuse me, the RB 9. He was the RB 9 last season. Alvin Kamara is being left for dead. He is at the very top of the RB dead zone right now. I get it. The Saints suck. The Saints are this year's Jaguars. Danger, danger, stay away. Rookie quarterback or Desmond Ridder, not good. Really, really bad cap situation because of the Derek Carr contract. Can't get players in because of the cap situation. I know that's more of a dynasty thing, but it does matter for real football because real men have to play real football. You can't just have numbers on a spreadsheet.
Players are going to leave, not come in. Yeah,
exactly. Players aren't. They can't afford guys because they have no money. They can't afford to build a team right now. You have a brand new coach in Kellen Moore who historically loves one running back and loves to feature that one running back. And you have a rookie or a bad Desmond Ridder, who's the safest player, who's the quarterback's best friend, the tight end, who they don't have, or the pass-catching running back. Derek Carr, not a good quarterback. Not great. You didn't want him on your roster. You still don't. And Alvin Kamara finished as the RB9 last year on basically a carbon copy of what they're going to go back and run it back with this year with the same team, minus Ryan Ramczyk. It is not a good group. It is not a high-powered, explosive offense. But they have Chris Olave. They have Rashid Shaheed, who's a super deep threat. And I think Rashid Shaheed's fine as a football player. I think Rashid Shaheed is an interesting dynasty player because if they get a real quarterback in, Rashid Shaheed's value goes up. Not to the crazy levels of like you're buying him for, crazy draft picks, but like he's useful at that point. He becomes a Darnell Mooney. That's my comp for Rashid Shaheed. He becomes a useful player in your roster, a wide receiver 4, a flex player that you could use on a weekly basis. My take is not about Rashid Shaheed. Alvin Kamara, if I load up at wide receiver, especially now that redraft has become a lot of, at least 3 draft leagues that I play in, 3 receivers that you have to start. If I load up receiver, and Alvin Kamara is there on the board as my RB1 on the 4th round, I will take that. I'd be much happier if I had a higher value running back and Kamara is my RB2. But I'm comfortable enough because I believe that the volume is going to be there. And in a PP and a half or full PPR situation, that Kamara's made his money off of pass catching. He can give you 6 touchdowns on Christmas Day, or was it 5 touchdowns? It doesn't matter. He can give you a Christmas Day.
It was 6. Yeah,
it was 6. 6 touchdown performance. He can give you 1 rushing touchdown and 1 receiving touchdown with 100 yards on any given week. Right? I'm not saying that's his floor. That's certainly closer to his ceiling outcome, but here's some names that are going around him.
I was just going to ask because I've noticed that he is clearly going a lot higher than he was last year, and it takes away a little bit of the crazy value. But I'm curious. That's what I really wanted to ask you. I'm glad you're going into that. Is what are some of the names above him that are clear cut? You're easily slotting him ahead, and when does it start getting fairly, at least a little bit difficult? He's in consideration, possibly above, but he should be in this conversation versus this conversation. Where's that line for you?
Here's some names. Joe Mixon. I would still take Joe Mixon ahead of Kamara, but it's
really because Joe Mixon on ECR is outside of this range. Actually, he's getting buried. So Mixon might be an additional value if Kamara
Mixon's
goes.
An additional value. Kenneth Walker, KW3 and Charbonnet are more so a 1-2 tandem than people want to believe. And I think that's what KW3's knock has been. That's why his value his ceiling has been lowered and his value has, I won't say his value has dropped, but his ADP has dropped because he doesn't have the backfield to himself. Who's the backup running back in New Orleans? I have no idea. Is it Devin Neal? Is it what's his face, who was supposed to be the superstar darling that hasn't played in 2 years, whose name I can't even remember off the top of my head right now?
TCU back.
The TCU kid. Yeah, why is my brain going blank?
I think we
piss me off now.
Do we really hate him that much that he's
Kendry Miller?
I was gonna say I want to say Kenneth Walker so much, but yeah.
So that's my point, right? Like everyone is fading Tyrone Tracy because they're so high on Cam Scatterbo. I don't know if that's the right call or not, but I can tell you the Giants are probably going to treat it more like a committee. There is not outside of injury, there is not a possibility that the Saints will put another running back on the field except to spell Kamara to give him rest, because the drop-off is so significant. It is so significant. So, and I'm not, again, look, what was Devin Neal? Fifth round draft pick? this year? Florida
Yeah.
Atlantic kid came out
He
in
might
the
have
fifth
been
round.
sixth round. He
sixth.
fell quite a bit. I think he actually was sixth.
You don't have a Caleb Johnson to Jalen Warren is my point, right?
Yeah.
I would say Brian Robinson Jr., you don't have an Austin Eckler. And I know Austin Eckler is old and he's a little bit busted and he's not a super exciting
He still
player
does a couple
anymore.
things well, though.
But you know what? He gets on the field a lot more than Brian Robinson Jr. B-Rob owners want him to be. And that's my point. Who is the backup in Philadelphia? Is it Will Shipley? Is it Kenneth Gainwell? It doesn't matter.
They added Cam Akers now too, so it's just this big group of like
Saquon Barkley.
Pairs, right?
It's Derrick Henry, and then if Justice Hill comes on every now and again, and if he steals a touchdown, great. But it's Derrick. Like, that's what I'm saying.
I think they added a bunch of really cheap backs. Like Kamara's our guy, but if and when he gets injured, we got like a rotating cast of. I think Kendre Miller is getting DeAndre Swifted out. They just all don't like him. I think Devin Neal was hey, fine, we'll take him late. I don't think he does much this year, but I think Devin Neal really is the future of that backfield. And they're grabbing the Kamara and the Clyde to say Kamara and Clyde are like the future RB2, RB3. They're just competing for a depth role. Like I think they'll be the perennial like RB3 on that team for a long time, and it's kind of never relevant. Might get talked about once or twice. No, I mean Cam Akers and Clyde. I think those guys will never even be in the RB2 consideration. They might get in there, but they'll just be depth pieces that are forever on a team. The Kenny Gainwells in the Eagles, where they'll just never be the guy. They'll kind of always be irrelevant, but decent NFL guy to kind of have around to some extent. Yeah, I like that a lot. I was thinking even in my own rankings when I was kind of taking a peek there, because Alvin Kamara at RB14 does feel pricier, but I looked up at just upside plus stability. I'll get even spicier. And I don't know if I would do it this way because ADP would be crazy, but I don't know why we're drafting Kyren as high as we are, given that Kamara's like still on the board. For me, Kyren like nearly led the league in snap share, but caught less passes. And if he loses even a little bit of goal line work or the O-line's, Kyren's a guy, if the O-line's bad, he is in trouble. He is not good enough to overcome a bad O-line. I mean, it takes a hell of a running back to overcome a mediocre O-line, let alone a bad one. I don't think they'll be bad, but any O-line can be bad in any year. It can always happen. Kamara doesn't care. So that's one example of Kyren's going, I think he's ECR 13, but I think in drafts there's actually a pretty big drop-off in where they go round by round. And I think Kamara really belongs in the Kyren. Alvin Kamara is closer to Breece Hall than he is the rest of the tiers, and Breece is 12. And he might be better than Breece Hall.
Yeah, to me, like that's the other. I mean, I want to talk about. I think we're going to wrap the show here, but people are just panicking on Breece, and I think it's a mistake. I think he's going to be just fine because the talent is there, and ultimately, with a first-year head coach, you got to win some games, man. Breece gives you the best chance to win games. I'm not saying that Braylon Allen's not going to get on the field. I don't think it's going to be a full-blown committee. I just don't. I don't see it. My point.
Me and you are going to be in on Breece forever, man. I guess I'm the Garrett Wilson guy, so give me Breece too, man, and I'll just be a Jets fan now.
But again, let's say for just 2 seconds, let's say that they really do go to a committee. Whether it's the right decision or the wrong decision, they have a Braylon Allen who can actually do it. I don't think he's nearly as talented as Breece is, but he can do it.
He's still young too. I like.
There's
Braylon
nobody in New Orleans. There is nobody in New Orleans that can do at the running back position what Alvin Kamara can do. And here's my cherry on top for why I think Alvin Kamara could be a great player this season in redraft. Taysom Hill's gone.
All those,
and that was always your problem when you had one of those crazy. This is why you couldn't have Taysom Hill in your tight end position, because the week that you didn't start him, which was most weeks, he would get 3 goal line carries and 3 of those would be touchdowns. And you're going, shit, at least one of those should have gone to Kamara. Guess what? Ain't no Taysom Hill anymore. And I don't think they're going to put Chuck or Ritter can't see over the offensive line. So they're not running the football. Yeah, so you've got Chris Olave, you've got Rashid Shaheed, and you've got Alvin Kamara. And I'll be honest with you, it's Chris Olave and Alvin Kamara are the 2 very clear candidates to lead that team in targets. And I wouldn't be shocked if Kamara leads the team in targets. I wouldn't be shocked. I don't think it will happen because of Kellen Moore's offense and the way he likes to play. I think he's going to try to get Olave the ball as much as he can. But quarterback's best friend is the tight end, and they don't have one. So it's going to be the pass catching running back, and that is where Kamara has made his money.
That's such a good point, man. Honestly, I guarantee you, one of the major brands is going to come out with a headline article weeks from now that's talking about that Taysom Hill's gone. Yeah. And Olave cannot be oops, we're just going to chuck you the ball. Like, they're going to suck. They're going to tell the quarterback, if you're about to get hit and it's about to be bad, throw it to anybody other than Olave for the love of God. So their tight end, middle of the field, it's just kind of all going to Kamara. Yeah, I like that take a lot.
All right. Let's do this. We are going to wrap the show here, but tomorrow, what time are we doing the show tomorrow?
So two shows tomorrow. We are going to do an earlier show. I believe that is going to run at 8:30, I think is the time. 8:30 Eastern.
Yeah, 5:30 our time.
5:30 your time. So right when you're getting out of work on the coast, hit us up. And then if you're the later, we still have Friday night mocks. So you've got 8:30 Eastern. We're gonna run a best ball segment with Phil. I'll be in there. I think we might have a couple of the other guys on. But we're talking best ball street. So if you're in the best ball mania crowd, if you are just into the tournament drafts, there's a couple new apps that have got up. Drafters is there. We're obviously underdog folks. If you do anything in best ball, check us out. We're gonna have a good time with it. I haven't done a bunch of best ball shows. I'm really looking forward to that with you.
Boy.
And then there shouldn't be too much of a delay. Maybe half an hour delay between streams. And then we've got Friday night mocks at 9:30 Eastern. So probably one should run right into the other.
No, we're gonna keep it to an hour tomorrow. I've got I don't know. You know me in best ball, man. I've been playing these larger field tournaments the last 2 years, and I've been
You've been doing well, but you've been very close to a lot better than well.
Yeah. Well,
Rasta almost won a serious amount of money. You almost took home some serious
King of the Desert. A lot of zeros so for those that don't know, last year I played. It was the first, probably second year I've played in some of the really big large field tournaments, and I still will take down the smaller ones, but play in the smaller ones as well. But I played in the King of the Desert tournament last year, 60,000 people. I finished 13th, and I needed 0.53 points would have got me into the top 12. That's what I needed in that week. I finished third in that league. Only the top two go to get to the last 12. And you're correct. It was an additional 0 that point that less than basically half of one more catch from anybody on my roster would have added a 0 to my winnings. So
it does feel like I do more best ball. The results, if we pull up our accounts, the results say we should be talking about best ball more. We're doing very well with our own.
We're doing well in best ball. So come and join us tomorrow night. We will be talking all things best ball. We'll be talking best players to target, highest values, some cheap stacks. I can't believe these words are going to come out of my mouth, but we will be talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers late cheap stack for your QB3 and tight end 2, especially if you go early, because it's best ball. You got to take some of those shots, and it's basically free. So yes, we will talk a little bit about Old Man Rogers and Pat the Muth tomorrow night, and stoked to do some best ball, man. So thanks, Rafi. Thanks, everyone, for being here. As always, this is The Extra Point. Looking forward to seeing you all tomorrow for a best ball show and Friday night mocks. We out. Oh, I got to get my Kendall. I didn't do it. I'm going to get my outro.
I was going to say.
All right, let's try that again.
I didn't end my stream last time. I think I was on camera for about 2 minutes while the Discord had to remind me that I am still live.
Well, silently. Like picking your nose or, All right. So, all right. We will see you tomorrow for best ball. Good night.